Well, hello, my fabulous friends. I hope you're doing well. Well, I was reading a story that Camilla actually begged the Queen not to allow Charles to marry Diana. And I thought, well, let's ask the Victorian Romantic Tarot if that's true. Did Camilla beg the Queen? Now, I'm just wondering, how did Camilla even have access to the Queen? But yeah, the families go back quite a bit. How did Camilla beg the Queen not to let Charles marry Diana? Is this a true story? Is this fluff piece? What's going on here? Did Camilla beg the? And then I thought, so what? Camilla can be married, but Charles can't, or was she thinking, if Charles doesn't marry Diana, I'll divorce my husband and then Charles and I'll get married? Like, what was she thinking? What was in her head? If that is true, if that is true. So if it is true that Camilla did beg the Queen, plus you have to remember back then, a divorced heir could not become king. So is that what she was thinking? Is like, I'm going to divorce my husband, and yes, I'll be a divorcee, but at least the king won't be divorced, right? Let's find out. Is this true? Did Camilla beg the Queen not to allow Charles to marry Diana? And if so, what were her intentions? What were her intentions? Did Camilla beg the Queen to not allow Charles to marry Diana? And if so, what were her true intentions? Oh, that was very definite. It's almost like this deck has been waiting for that question. Wow. The Lovers in reverse. Star-crossed Lovers. Wow, right off the hop. Right off the hop. The Lovers card. Choice. Poor choice. Bad choice. Change your mind. We are the lovers. We are the forbidden lovers. The Lovers in reverse. Forbidden lovers. Star-crossed lovers. Not we aren't lovers. Is we can't choose each other. Wow, right off the hop. Holy. Death in reverse ending. She knew that if Charles married Diana, that would be the end of their love story. That would end everything. That would be the end of everything. Charles' chance to become king, their chance to be together. Wow. 10 of Pentacles in reverse. Out of the line of succession. Do you believe it? So she was worried that Charles would be like, or I think you can be divorced, but you can't be remarried. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think here she was really concerned that Charles would be out of the line of succession. Wow, the Lovers in reverse, Death in reverse, 10 of Pentacles in reverse. It would be a great loss. A great loss. She would never be allowed to be with Charles. And if she was, she'd be the new Wallis Simpson, except she wouldn't be American, right? The king would have to abdicate to be with her. For the king to be married to Diana, right? I think if Charles did not marry Diana and Camilla did leave her husband, I'm pretty sure, because they would have modernized the royal family or the royal protocol, that Charles could have married a divorced woman. I'm pretty sure they would. They've changed things since then, right? For Charles to become king, divorced and married to a divorced woman. So I'm pretty sure they would have made concessions for that. It wasn't 1936 anymore. It was 1986, right? Yeah. Five of Pentacles in reverse and Queen of Pentacles in reverse. She did ask the Queen. She did ask the Queen. And with this Five of Pentacles in reverse, look at their all reversal here. Here's the Queen right here. She did ask the Queen. And I think that there was something there saying to bring Camilla in. Wow, what a story. Nine of Wands in reverse, yes. Number one, she knew it would be a battle if he married Diana. She knew they were not a match. Well, even their age difference, right? They were almost two different generations. It was a real battle. Also, embarrassment. Remember, she was married. Charles was not. So there's some kind of embarrassment there that, fooling around with a married woman. Knight of Pentacles in reverse. Well, kind of just stuck. Inertia. Right? Charles wasn't getting any younger. And I think, there was real pressure for Charles to marry somebody and create an heir. Ace of Cups in reverse. Rivers and rivers of tears over this. Remember, we're not talking about Diana. This is between Camilla and the Queen and Charles. Rivers and rivers of tears. That was a situation they were stuck in. There was no getting out of it. The Lovers again. Now, this deck has two Lovers, two Death, two Devils. And I like leaving extra cards in there because sometimes it can give you... So first, here's the long-lost lovers, and then here's the marriage. Do you see the difference? Here's the affair, here's the passion, here's the in the moonlight and, almost forbidden. And here is the lovers getting married. So here is the actual wedding. Here's the actual wedding. King of Wands. King of Wands. Now, who would be the King of Wands at that point? Philip is the King of Swords. Who would be the King of Wands looking at this? What about Diana's father? The Earl Spencer. Could have that been her father looking at this? Two of Cups in reverse. Wow. Once the wedding was on, these lovers are no longer allowed to be together. Seven of Cups in reverse. Lots of gaslighting, lots of illusion, confusion, and lack of choice. Lack of choice. Let's be honest here. Charles was expected to marry, even back in 1980, a virgin. Maybe that's why he had to go so young, all the way to 19. And who knows if she was or not. I mean, but the perception had to be there, right? Kings had to marry virgins to make sure that the child that comes is theirs. Or she's not pregnant with some other man's child when you get married, that kind of thing. So this Seven of Cups here is telling me there was a lack of choice. Charles waited so long. A lot of the women that he was dating, that he was seeing, very well positioned, could have easily been married to. He chose not because he was in love with Camilla all this time. The choices kind of started dwindling away. until all he was left was Diana. And unfortunately, I don't mean to sound unkind by saying that, but I think that was a fact. At his age, he kind of put himself into a corner, right? And it had to be, look at that, the clock agrees with me. The moon in reverse, 8 of Wands, strength, and the Hermit, and the World in reverse, and the Page of Pentacles. Page of Pentacles, being sold a story. I'm going to say that this story is true, but they went on with it anyways. They went on with it anyways. And remember I said the perception had to be that Charles was marrying a virgin, and that's the Hermit, that's the Virgo. And here's the royal family, the strength, the Leo. The Leo marries the Virgo. The royal family marries the Virgin. And they just went ahead with it anyways. Even though it was very unsuccessful, and they had to sell it as a love story. As the future king. Look at that on the Ermine. So I'm going to say there's legs to that story. And Camilla was actually really concerned about Charles losing the line of succession if he married her and got divorced and got back with Camilla. Or maybe perhaps even just discovering the affair, right? Wow. Rivers and rivers of tears around that wedding. And even this actually could be the Earl, because even Diana herself knew that this Two of Cups in reverse here, she cried on her wedding day. This is Charles and Camilla. This is Charles and Diana. And the Two of Cups here in reverse, I think Diana knew on her wedding day. Because remember that comment that Charles made, of whatever love means. They knew it would be unsuccessful right from the start. But the perception was the king has to marry a virgin. Even though he was just a prince back then, one day he would have been king, right? So yeah, the story's true. Because Camilla knew one day she would have Charles. And she was more worried about the legacy and the line of succession. Interesting. Thanks so much for watching. Please take good care. See you online. Bye for now.